Hi, everyone. Corey Fleck here. I'm your host of this KE Report webinar. This webinar is also produced in conjunction with Focus Communications. In this webinar, I'm excited to have on Eloro Resources, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ELO, also on the OTCQX under the symbol ELRRF. Now, I have a group or a team of the Eloro representatives on with me. We have Tom Larsen, President and CEO. Also, Bill Pearson, Executive Vice President of Exploration, as well as Quinton Hennigh, Technical Advisor. Now, I'm going to let the team run through a presentation to bring everybody up to speed on some of the fundamentals of Eloro Resources and a big focus on the company's flagship Iska Iska project in Bolivia. I know a lot of my listeners are up to date on this story because, look, Eloro has been putting out a lot of very impressive drill results over the past probably year plus now, and it's garnered a lot of attention from our listeners thanks to the silver and tin aspect of this project. Now, you all have the ability to ask questions throughout this webinar. I ask that you please use this webinar feature or the webinar program in either the chat or the Q&A section. I will be interjecting those questions throughout this webinar, trying to tie them into whatever slide they relate most to. At the tail end of this webinar, we will also be having a bit more of a Q&A question period. And if we don't get to any of your questions throughout this webinar, you can always email me personally, Fleck, that is FLECK, at kereport.com. Guys, I first and foremost want to thank you for taking time to share the Eloro story. And Tom, President and CEO of Eloro, please kick us off with a little background on the company. I will fire up the slides now for you guys to speak to.
Excellent. Thanks for having us, Corey. It's a pleasure to be here to address your audience. I have with me Dr. Bill Pearson, Executive VP, Exploration for Eloro Resources, and also Dr. Quinton Hennigh, our Senior Technical Advisor. The two of them will go through the updated technical aspects of the company, just the progression that Iska Iska is involved in at this point in time. I'll just go through, basically refresh everyone as to current corporate structure. Nothing's really changed over the last few months, but we'll just go quickly here. In the background, you see the great volcanic edifice of Iska Iska, the silver tin polymetallic project. We're sitting with your typical mandatory standard disclaimer. On to basically who we are again. Publicly traded exploration mine development company, and again focused on the Iska Iska silver tin multi-metal polymetallic property in the Potosi Department of Southern Bolivia. Symbol ELO, TSX.V, Frankfurt listing and OTCQX under symbol ELRRF. Again, we have an option to acquire a 99% or take control of a 99% interest in this 9 square kilometer highly prospective project, which hosts this major silver tin polymetallic. We are located 4,000 meters above sea level along a very flat-lying antiplano topography, very conducive for the work that we're doing. We raised over 30 million Canadian in Q1 2021. This was a bought deal, financed, led through Haywood Securities. Cantor Fitzgerald and Cormark were also very much involved in that financing. $6 million financing at $1.75 with half a warrant, and a secondary $25 million financing at $3.75 a month or so later, after some pretty impressive drill results that moved our valuation up. Aggressive drilling campaign to date. I think we're close to 54,000 meters, over 82 holes to date drilled since the inaugural startup, property having never been drilled. They start up from the Hiracasa underground adit in September of 2020. So here's our share cap, 63.68 million outstanding, fully diluted, 77.11. We're trading around 525, 530. So share cap overall from the outstanding of around 330, 340 million Canadian. And again, management directors, advisors, significant shareholders have close to 28 million of that 63.68. Again, we have, like, this is exploration and future development. So the team, a very strong technical team that's led by Dr. Bill Pearson. Bill and I go back a long way, and he was very highly recognized in geological circles, especially with the Jacobina extension discoveries that were subsequently picked up, bought by Yamana, which is one of their main flagship properties today. It was a former Desert Sun property. Dr. Quinton Hennigh, who I think that your audience knows very well. I got to know Dr. Quinton Hennigh through we had a friend of ours over in Lausanne actually introduced Quinton to Eloro as to the Bolivian, especially our Bolivian property project. And Quinton was very instrumental in basically bringing Crescat Capital coming in as our first institutional investor at a low price, but that was high risk back then, and they've been with us ever since. And Quinton works very closely when asked with Dr. Pearson and with Dr. Osvaldo Arce. Dr. Osvaldo Arce was the fellow that actually brought the opportunity to Eloro, to myself and Bill, back in 2019. And Dr. Osvaldo Arce, born, raised in Bolivia. His father was Raul Arce, who was national manager at Comobol, the state-run mining arm of the Bolivian government. Bolivia is a small place. People know people there, obviously, and he was president of the Geological Society of Bolivia from 2010 to 2018. He's the one that spent time on the property at Iska Iska, and he's the one that suggested that it checked the boxes for us to get involved. So those three are the guys, the driving force behind this pretty, I would say, very fast moving drilling project and what we're coming up with. Next, we have Bolivia itself. I mean, there's more and more people getting involved in the Department of Potosí, especially. A lot of new players coming in. The new government, well, it's the same, the MAS party, but Luis Arce, finance background from the University of Warwick in London, England, at least in England, sorry. But very, very progressive in attitude when it comes to trying to attract foreign investment to the country. Like just recently, a 0% VAT on any incoming mining industrial equipment. They are looking, basically mining, especially in our area, probably is one of the largest contributors to the Bolivian economy, 30% at least. We find Bolivia a great place to be working. Here's an infrastructure map that we put in recently into our deck, and this sort of shows you the accessibility from the standpoint of where Iska Iska is located. It also shows the San Cristobal, a very active mine. It runs over 50,000 tons a day of material and has both three components, a silver, a zinc, a lead. And these concentrates are then taken by rail down to the port in Chile and off to the smelters in Sumitomo in Japan. You can see that power is close by. We have water source, and we're very close to road and to built-in infrastructure, being rail, for instance, 2 smelters that are also on rail and road access from where our location is. So we're in a good situation from an infrastructure standpoint. Again, as I mentioned, Easy topography. That's 4,000 meters up. That's in the forefront. That's a drill pad, surface drill pad on our Santa Barbara basic breccia volcanic form structure. So you see there's no Guiamperos, there's no community. It's a fantastic place to be working. Edwin Villegas, the owner. This is a privately owned project. Edwin's highly regarded in the district. He's recently elected as a VP director of the Topeza Mining Chamber of the Department of Potosi. Next. I think the reason we're here today, we understand the importance of some of these future metals. Silver would be deemed as one. There's a lot of silver players out there, but I think the sheer size of what we're up to, what we're starting to show, which we'll see over the next few months, you're going to see. I'm expecting, hopefully, a very large silver component to this overall project. So there's strong demand for silver. We haven't seen silver really move that much. It's been sort of in this $25 range, but even the $25 range is, with the grades that we're getting, is most economic. Next. Now, tin is very interesting. When we first got involved in this, it was more based on, silver, zinc. Those were the two big components that we thought, primarily silver, but we've really come in, we're definitely within the Bolivian tin belt, and we really are coming in with some very interesting numbers. I mean, we're getting 0.2% tin in a lot of cases per ton of ore. 0.2%, you convert that, that's 4 pounds of tin per ton. Pound of tin's trading at over $20 US today, close to $20 US. $40,000 a ton. So, 4 pounds, 20, that's $80 rock, just on the tin component alone. And we're getting other higher grade material from the, from the drill bit. So I think tin's going to be, it's one of those things, it's a very small market, 300,000 tons produced annually. The Chinese have around 30%, 30,000, at least 10%. 30,000 tons that they contain, that they use, doesn't hit the market. You have Myanmar. You've got the San Rafael just to the southeast, Peru in the Bolivian tin belt that's active right now. They have a smelter there. That's probably 20,000 tons a year. The Bolivian output's only about 14,000 tons based on 2 smelters, underutilized. Tin prices have gone through the roof over the last few months. I think there's a real niche here. If we can show a major bulk tonnage operation, major tonnage that could last for multiple years, this could be very interesting for a big balance sheet to come in if they're that interested in the tin market. We just noticed that a big player in Cornish metals, Sir Nick Davis from Xstrata, Glencore fame, just put a substantial investment into a tin company that's been resurrected in Cornwall. So people are starting to pay attention to the tin market. Again, the definitive agreement, where we have to make a $10 million US payment before January 6, 2024. And we already, because of the drill results and how we really appreciate the Villegas, the owners of the property, their work on site, the road access, the rehabbing of the adits that we're working from the just their accommodation in Topeza that oversee our Bolivian workforce, being 15, 16 or so technical geologists that work out of Topeza, where our core, everything's located. We decided to make a $3 million US payment to them, a few months ago. So we're down to $7 million US owing to the Villegas family. And we have until, again, January 6, 2024 to make that payment. We've issued 500,000 shares. The deal was signed January 6, 2020. So good relationships, really happy and pleased that we're working with the Villegas family. Obviously, social license is so critical. And, you know, I mean, we've obviously followed the case study of San Cristobal and how they performed in getting their major project into production. I mean, they spent over $1.8 billion back to 2005, 2008 to go into a 40,000 ton a day operation. And obviously there was major social license, whether you're dealing with migratory habits of llamas, quina, farming, you know, just a lot of different things. But most importantly, we're pushing Bolivia. Our workforce is 100% Bolivia. Our drillers, Leduc Drilling, are Bolivian. And for instance, we just set up 100 sanitation stations in nearby communities. So we're obviously very, very committed to making sure that we all work together closely.
Tom, can I jump in there real quick? Because there was a question that asked about what the environment is like for actual miners in there, some of the taxes involved with any mining operations in your neighbors or with your neighbors. Do you have any more information on this, since you are talking Bolivia and your relationship right now?
Well, there's two operations that we know of: the Pan American Silver San Vicente project, which is 40-50 kilometers away northwest of us, and obviously the San Cristobal deposit. There's no sort of compulsory royalties. It's basically a tax. Most of your CapEx is written off initially, but you get into a federal 30-35% tax, and there can be a regional 15%. But that's basically that's it from that standpoint. So I think, you know, when we look at and then on, you know, withholding tax, for instance, you take a look at our neighbors like Peru or Ecuador. The withholding tax here for foreigners is around 15%. Go to Ecuador and Peru, you're into the 25-35%. So it's a good place to work.
How are your guys' permits too? Because you are doing a lot of drilling. Sounds like you're going to continue to do a lot of drilling. What's the permitting environment? What permits do you guys currently hold?
Well, the Villegas family that own the property, they have the permits that they've had for, you know, several years now, which are basically exploration and small mining permits. And so we're grandfathered through those two permits. And that's what allows us, that would allow us to go all the way to a feasibility study. You know, once you get into commercialization, obviously there's other permits, environmental, you know, it's a totally different world, but we're not even close to that stage yet.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you, Tom.
And finally, these are just some of the players, some of the foreign public companies, exploration and development companies that are in our vicinity. The Cerro Rico de Potosi, that's situated up in the town now called Potosi because of the Cerro Rico deposit, the largest silver tin deposit ever discovered by man back in the 16th century. They've taken out over 2.2 billion ounces of silver, more artisanal type activities on that. And Dr. Pearson and Quinton will explain how our project is preserved and was overlooked for centuries. But this underwrote the Spanish Armada. The Potosi silver coinage was used worldwide for barter, for currency exchange, for many, many years. So that's what really put Bolivia on the map from the standpoint of silver activity, especially. Then you have New Pacific Metals, the silver sands. They've done a great job back basically proving up the silver sands. They have a couple of other projects now, but they had a share cap that got up to close to $1 billion. You know, well-followed public company. And that's what sort of spurred Dr. Pearson and I into looking into Bolivia in 2019 after the success of New Pacific Metals, and wondering, boy, I thought Bolivia was a pretty closed sort of society, not really knowing what was going on. But then you're suddenly getting all of this, you know, this traction in the equity markets. And that's when we just decided to talk to Dr. Osvaldo Arce and hire him to get us going. You've got Silver Elephant, Puuakaya, and Andean Precious Metals are fairly new. They bought the San Bartolome area. They're a publicly traded company right now. I think around 400 million market cap. Some of the Buchan people that ran founded Kinross are on the board of that company. Also, then obviously you have the Sumitomo Corp. It's San Cristobal deposit. That's a private entity, but Sumitomo is private. And that's a major world-class byproduct silver, lead, zinc operational mine. And again, Pan American Silver, the San Vicente, primarily silver, 40 kilometers away from us. So lots of activity from foreigners in our area, which is telling because it's only really been happening over the last 2-3 years. And I will now pass it on, the important stuff, to Dr. Bill Pearson.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So Tom just mentioned Cerro Rico. There's the picture on the left of the famous hill there. I actually visited that in October. There's thousands of miners still in there producing away. Most people think of it as silver. It's got a lot of tin plus lead and zinc. And over on the right-hand side is our Iska Iska hill, which, as I'll show you, has a lot of similarities in terms of metal contents, timing, and mineralization, but it has some really, really unique differences that set it apart. This just shows you the property covers about 900 hectares. It's an average elevation about 4,000 meters. You can see we got a nice road network here. There's no artisanal miners or communities on here. Nearest center is to Pisa, 48 kilometers to the south. Now, this is a nice picture. This was some drone imagery we took last fall. You can see north here off to the right-hand side. We've got the Santa Barbara Central Porco targets, and you can see the Wauwakaza portal and the Santa Barbara portal. Wauwakaza, this was small underground workings excavated by Edwin Villegas, did about 300 meters of drifting. When Oswaldo looked at this originally, what really impressed us was how intense the alteration. And of course, we thought we were onto a potentially large system, but of course, we had no idea at the time how this would unfold as it has. This provided us a good early drill base, and then more recently, we've been doing a lot of drilling out of the Santa Barbara at it, and we have so we have an underground drill and a couple of surface drills going. We've got a fourth drill coming in very shortly. I would characterize this as doing a program in Arizona or Nevada, except at 4,000 meters. So here's a simplified geological map here. You can see the dashed black line. That's the caldera complex. It's a classic collapse resurgent caldera emplaced into Ordovician quartz sandstone. So we have these major breccia pipes. The small Wauwakaza was our first discovery, and then we got into the big Santa Barbara Central. And as I'll show you, there's a huge potential target below the Porco area. So a lot of our drilling has been focused on what we called our mineral resource target area. It's a big target here, about 1,400 meters by 500 by about 600. And I'll show you in more detail shortly. The whole complex, we think, is probably something like 4 kilometers along strike in a more or less northwest-southeast direction, at least a couple of kilometers wide. And there's a kilometer of relief from the valley to the peak. So you're looking at a really remarkably preserved volcanic edifice here.
Real quick, Bill, let me just hop in here because that is a large scale, right? And even to bring Quinton in here quickly, Quinton, you were early on in this story with Crescat. Did you see the possibility of the footprint being this large so early on?
Yes. If you look at the geology of this, the caldera, the size of it, it's in line with San Cristobal. And we know that San Cristobal is a very big system. Now, this has delivered some surprises because I think there's a lot more going on here, perhaps than even San Cristobal. You got a lot more individual breccia pipes, but the scale, absolutely, hands down, had to be world class, and this is it.
Perfect, Bill. Yeah, continue on here because a lot of people have some direct questions. This could actually tie into one, so you continue on.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of my favorite long sections. You can see it goes right across our target area, right through the middle of Santa Barbara, down through here at Porco. So this is a 3D inversion magnetic model. And what it shows you is basically somewhere down in the depth, there's a huge tin porphyry that drove this whole thing. And you've got basically this magmatic tongue coming up here. And right up at the top, you can see Santa Barbara at the top. You can think of Santa Barbara kind of like the frothy top. And that's where you get dominantly silver, zinc, lead, plus some tin. And as we get deeper in the system, we get central, and then also I'll show you a huge target in Porco. We lose the lead and zinc, and we go into much more of a tin plus silver. And we get down around Porco, we're also seeing gold and copper. Now, one of the questions I get asked was, how come this thing was never found? Well, you can see the oxide layer here, the oxide sulfide boundary. Well, the oxide layer, which can be 50 meters, sometimes on the hillside, it's more like 100 meters, it's intensely leached. So if you sampled the surface, which many, many people certainly have over the years, you get nothing. And in fact, when we hit the first hole in our Santa Barbara breccia pipe, when Osvaldo phoned me and told me about it, I said, wow, you better get our team out there and figure out what's going on. So they went out early in the morning, figured they'd spend a couple hours, and they wandered all around the hills all day, came back just before the sun went down. And all they said was mucha breccia, mucha breccia, mucha breccia. So we realized at that point, wow, this system is huge. So we haven't quite hit the tin porphyry yet, but we're working on it, as I'll show you. But look at the scale of this, 2.4K, 1.8. This is a massive system.
No, that big blob down on the right there was a question that came in that simply asked, what's the potential here? This listener put a potential value of $50 to $75 billion. That seems a bit aggressive early on, but what could you see out of the potential of this sort of a porphyry? How big it
let me continue, and I'll show you what our thinking is. It's still very early, and we're drill testing it now, but I think your reader will get a sense of the picture that we see unfolding. So this is a more detailed map of the Santa Barbara area. Here you can see our outline of our target zone. We've done quite a bit of drilling. Early was radial. We moved to sectional as we understood the structure together. And I want to particularly point to, if I can draw here, this hole around here. You can see the red dot there. That's the Santa Barbara drill bay. And you'll see this is DSB-U-03. I'm going to come back to that hole. What's been developing, particularly since we got a lot of results back out in the last couple of months, is this whole southern area is really, really turning into a very, very high-grade area. We keep expanding it as we drill it. We also got some very interesting results on the northwest extension as well. So there is basically mineralization along all these holes over 1,400 plus meters of strike length. And in fact, in all our drilling, we're up to low 80s in holes now. Everything we've drilled has had multiple reportable intersections, and which to me is quite remarkable. We have in no way defined the limits of this thing, and we keep pushing it out. But the more recent developments, particularly DSB-U-03, is incredibly exciting. So this is a summary of top 12 intersections. The scale and size of this is phenomenal. 373 in DSB-U-03, 300, I mean, that's 3 football fields, and lots of hundreds and 200s. And you can see the grades here, very, very nice, consistent grade. And as a geologist, that's one thing that really, really impresses me when I look at the grades, sample grades. This isn't something where you got a spike and nothing and a spike and some. these holes are continuously mineralized in these intersections. There's virtually hardly any holes below. We use a 30 gram silver equivalent cutoff in our assay samples. So for example, in TSX.V, there's about 244 samples. Of those, only 17 are below that 30 mark, and those 17 aren't zero. They're like 25, 20, quite remarkable. And you can see the range of grades here. These are our big four elements: silver, tin, zinc, and lead. Now, to show you this better, the next slide gives you a nice visual of the distribution of the major components. And you can see TSX.V is a deeper hole, a lot of tin. And basically those four top metals there are ultimately going to be probably 90% of the overall value. You can see we have other holes like TSX.V07 has a lot more tin and zinc, far less tin, and has some lead. So that gives you an idea. This deposit is definitely zoned, but as I'll show you, the pattern evolving is really as shown on that magnetic model section. Higher up, you're getting silver, lead, and zinc, plus some tin. Deeper down, you're getting a much more tin-dominant picture with some silver. We also have some gold, and the other is mainly copper, indium, cadmium, and some bismuth. But these four are the ones that are going to be the big winners.
So guys, real quick, we've had a couple general questions. Since we are talking about grade now, tin is a major component to this drilling so far. Is there any general rule of thumb that people can use to compare, let's say, 0.1% tin grade to gold or silver equivalent? Is there any easy math that people can do in their head?
Well, it's probably best done on a spreadsheet, because what you need to do is just you take the price of the of silver, and you take the price of tin, for example, and you just work out what the equivalent would be. So that's all we've done in these calculations. You have to just make sure that when you're converting from tin, which is percent, to grams, which is silver, is you convert the tin to grams when you multiply it.
Okay. How about then if we can talk about what the average grade of a tin deposit is? Can we go that far?
Well, it depends. If you're looking at more of the more bulk type tin deposits, for example, in Bolivia, from what and there's not a lot of published information, of course, on them, but Osvaldo has visited a lot of these. Typically the more bulk tonnage tin deposits in Bolivia are around 0.15 to 0.2%, something in that range. You'll hear about tin vein deposits. For example, Alpha Min down in DRC mines an average grade of about 4%, but that's veins only. In Iska Iska, we're looking at a huge bulk possibility, but we also have veins that run 3 to 4% tin. But certainly from a bulk tonnage perspective, if you're sitting around 0.15, 0.2% tin, that's a very good grade.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Quinton, how do you view tin? Can we get you in here quickly for some comments?
Certainly. Look, I was doing some math on my calculator to just try to pull out a number to sound intelligent. Look, right now at about $21 a pound for tin, using that price, and then current gold price, which is about $19.30, it's just under 3/4 of a gram gold equates to 0.1% tin. Okay, so if you have 0.2%, that would be 2 times that, so about 1.5 grams. And that's just the tin in this thing. To answer your question, the way I see this is the lead zinc values are actually and silver values are much in line with some other big deposits across Bolivia, notably San Cristobal. But this thing has the tin kicker, and that makes it just absolutely exceptional. This is kind of like having like Bill said, a bulk tonnage tin deposit within, or they're basically the same thing. I mean, they're the same deposit within a San Cristobal type lead zinc silver deposit. I mean, how good does that get? It's incredible.
Now, does metallurgy play a role in this? Is there any metallurgical issues that you need to be aware of when you do have this many metals there, Quinton? Maybe.
Look, I'll let Bill look. Here's my simple answer, and then Bill can fill in detail because he's actually doing the work on the metallurgy with the metallurgical scientists and stuff. Here's the way I see this. Okay, the mineralogy is quite simple. So basically, the ore minerals that are present here are all the typical minerals that we would see for lead, galena, zinc, sphalerite. You got tin as cassiterite. That's very important. If it's in cassiterite, you're pretty much you got an easier path because cassiterite is a tin oxide. It's a very dense mineral. You can separate it oftentimes with gravity separation, and you can also use flotation to capture it too. And then the silver occurs as sulfur salts associated with lead and zinc primarily. Okay, so from my perspective and knowing what I do about other deposits in this region, I don't see anything out of the ordinary with this deposit compared to anything else. And all of the rest of the mines in this region have pretty good metallurgy. They make great flotation concentrates and gravity concentrates in the case of tin. So I'll let Bill take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary. I think the problem is that a lot of people in North America in particular are so used to just copper or just gold. And the only time they hear about a polymetallic deposit is when it has metallurgical issues. But in Bolivia, they've been mining and processing these deposits very successfully for a long, long time. I mean, we know that the major tin mineral, as Quinton mentioned, is cassiterite, which is a real plus. The zinc is sphalerite, and the indium goes with sphalerite, and the cadmium goes with sphalerite. The silver, we know, goes with galena. So when you produce a lead concentrate, you'll get most of your silver. Obviously, we have more work to do and we have a very aggressive metallurgical program right now with Blue Coast, which is a top lab out in Vancouver Island. And we have a consultant, Mike Hollywell, who's if not the best, certainly one of the best tin metallurgists on the planet. He lives in tin country in Cornwall. So he's directing the whole program on tin. So yeah, certainly everything I've seen thus far, yes, we have some work to do. We have to do things like optimizing grain size to optimize recovery. But we certainly haven't run into anything that says we can't do it. It will be a plant that will have a number of circuits. You'll have a zinc flotation circuit, a lead flotation circuit. We also have to look at copper because we get copper zones up to 1% popping up. Gold pops up every now and then, being significant. And then, of course, tin will be gravity, but there may be some some finer tin. Maybe it'll be floatable. So anyway, the metallurgists are looking at all that, and I'm certainly very confident at the end of the day we'll come out with a very good flow sheet.
Now, what would a reasonable expected tin recovery to be in other projects or in this project? Can you put a number on that?
Well, I'd say the experience in Bolivia, they typically get up to, say, 80% with a 50% concentrate grade. That's fairly typical from, I know from what Osvaldo knows from the other mines.
Okay.
So, and we did put a summary out for silver, lead, and zinc because we did more work on that early on before, as Quinton mentioned, the tin started to show up. And certainly Richard Gowan's chief metallurgist for us in Micon, he was very confident of producing a very good quality lead and zinc concentrate, with most of the silver going to the lead. And thus far, that's certainly what we're seeing. So it's still early on metallurgy. We got a lot of work to do, but it's moving along well, and we haven't seen anything that tells us we are not going to be able to produce a good concentrate.
Okay, thank you for addressing those. We can move on now.
Yeah, so this is just a section here just to give a general form of the mineralization here. It's almost like a shallow sheet in many cases. When you look at it, you can see the purple is greater than 110, big concentration here. We only have results from a few holes to the northwest, but again, look at the scale across here, 1,200 meters. It's very, very extensive. Now, this is one we're particularly excited about, and this will lead into what I think is one of the big defining moments. When we look back, January 26th of last year, when we put out hole 15, we discovered Santa Barbara. That was a paradigm shift for Iska Iska. What I'm showing you now, I think, is the next paradigm shift. And this is our hole DSBU3 that had a terrific intersection, silver, lead, and zinc, but especially very, very good grade tin over a phenomenal length, 373 meters. So this is a cross section here. Hole DSBU3 here is drilled to the west at -50. You can see the long purple stretch there, but you can also see the other holes around. These are several other underground holes in the Santa Barbara adit. So if I do this drawing thing, you can see there's one heck of a big high-grade zone really starting to develop there. And obviously we're doing more drilling down here to better define it. Now, if you go up about a kilometer to the south here, these are pictures from the channel sampling at the Porco adit. And that's down near the Porco drilling area that I'll show you. We sample along this adit, 103 meters, really high-grade silver, and gold and copper showing up in phenomenal tin. And you can see beautiful, these are shots I took underground, beautiful massive sulfide vein. You can see the stockwork here with the copper oxide azurite. So that takes me to the next one, which shows you why we're so excited about DSBU3. Yes, fantastic intersection, great tin, but look where it is. This is our 3D inversion magnetic model. This model is working extremely well to show us where tin mineralization is. And you might ask, okay, why? Well, there's basically two magnetic minerals, magnetite and pyrrhotite. We certainly don't have magnetite because it's a sulfide environment, but we do have pyrrhotite. Every time we get deeper, we get into tin, bingo, pyrrhotite shows up, and that's magnetic. So you can see the trace here of DSBO3 here. Remember, this is drilled due west at -50. The model here, you're looking to the southeast. You can see the Porco radial drilling here. And you can see where this hole hit our model. And you can see the purple area. That whole area, that's where that big, huge intersection is. So, of course, when we looked at the model, we realized, wow, this looks like the tip of the iceberg here. So I'm actually drilling. I have some holes that are going into this, test this magnetic model. And remember, this is deeper, but remember, I'm sitting on a hill where there's a kilometer from the valley to the peak. So this is still very accessible from the valley. Now, these holes we put in Porco, they had some intersections, not a lot, but the one hole that did hit something was DPC1, which it's hard to see on this drawing, but it actually clipped the edge of the model, and bingo, that's where the best numbers are. So what seems to be evolving, and I think this is another major paradigm shift for Iska Iska. We've been focusing on the Santa Barbara area. There's no doubt we will outline a substantial resource of silver, lead, zinc, and tin up there. But what's DSBU3 really has highlighted, and we will be highlighted even more as we go forward, is you can think of Santa Barbara as kind of domain 1. Well, this domain 2 is very, very likely our tin porphyry, and we've got to confirm that, obviously, but we're certainly off to a good start with DSBU03. So if our thinking continues and we can confirm the validity of this model, you can see the potential is huge. So I envision Iska Iska turning into, just like Quinton said, we got a lead, zinc, silver deposit up here with some tin, and then we've got potential for a huge tin porphyry down here.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a massive blob down there, and it sounds like a lot of drilling still to do. Quinton, any idea on how many meters you guys need to drill just in this area to truly get a handle on this and show that it could be this big?
Look, if you look at the volumes that Bill's showing and the depths, you can see the scale there in the lower left. Look, this is going to take a couple 100,000 meters of drilling ultimately to fully, get up to, say, measured and indicated. But I think at a high level with, to get it to inferred, you could probably get away with maybe 50 or 60,000 meters in the system if it behaves, predictably, we'll call it, is well behaved. If you poke enough holes into that red blob. So I'm not talking about what's been drilled so far. I'm just talking about the red blob you see here. I think, call it 50 holes, ultimately on the length of a kilometer each. That should get you in the ballpark of a resource. But, Bill can weigh in because he lives it.
So, Bill, also to that point, would there be a porphyry source? Would numbers get better, closer to an area here? What's your assessment?
Well, I would sort of expect that. Where if you look at 30 kilometers to the northwest, there's a mine called Cherokee, which is a tin mine. It's in what they call an intrusion breccia in Bolivia, which seems to be, it's a bit of an unusual rock type. It's a breccia, but it's not an explosive breccia like we're used to. It forms fairly deep. Tin forms as a high temperature, very deep mineral. And the academic studies actually tell you these intrusion breccias take a while to cool. Well, I think that we've got the potential to drill down into something like Cherokee, but this will be potentially, I think, much, much bigger. I think with respect to high-grade zones, I mean, we've already seen in DSBU3, there's some spectacular samples in there where we're getting, 1.5 meters of 4.1% tin, and the sample next to it is 3.55. So there's definitely potential for higher grade areas in this whole system, but ultimately the target is a big bulk tonnage tin deposit.
Okay, guys, perfect. Let's keep moving on here because we do have a number of questions. I know we still have a few more slides, so as quickly as you can move through them, Bill.
I'll go quickly here. Let me just skip through that one. I'll show you. This is an interesting drawing. This is from Osvaldo's book, and this just shows a conceptual model for the porphyry epithermal system. The green being the higher level epithermal, and the pink being the deeper porphyritic. And you can see the scale on the left here, Coricolo, 1 kilometer. Well, the Iska Iska mountain basically has this entire section here. We have the upper Huahuacaza, which is obviously much smaller, but same level as San Cristobal. Santa Barbara seems to be sitting about where Cerro Rico is. Central, and of course I would add in, likely add in Porco down here. So this is really remarkable thing about Iska Iska. We're not looking at one level here. We're in fact exploring this entire section. And this next drawing just gives you a quick cartoon. Everything you know about Andean geology, forget it. It's all reversed in Bolivia. Tin is early, forms really deep because the crust here is 80 kilometers thick. The second stage, and that formed the early stage in that volcanic complex, which formed the original caldera. And then you've had a resurgent caldera where you've got these dacitic domes cut by these huge breccia pipes. And that's when your epithermal silver, lead, zinc came in, and it also carried some tin, mainly mechanically. And then what is really makes Iska Iska rather a challenge sometimes geologically, but has really upped the grade is this major tectonic stage related to the Andes. And so you've moved around the silver, lead, and zinc in particular, but you've also structurally upgraded. So that's part of the reason why we get areas with really spectacular grade, and it's also pushed it out into all the rock types. And so you end up with the present day with some uplifts. So just to quickly summarize then, okay, we're moving ahead on this 43101 resource, but originally we said Q2, it's probably going to get pushed back a little bit. Why? Because we keep finding big wide intersections that clearly we have to do more drilling. Huge target zone, but what's really exciting is, and I think it'll be another paradigm shift in Iska Iska, if we can show that there's a major tin porphyry down there, this absolutely will become a world-class discovery. So exciting times at Eloro. Stay tuned. You're going to see lots of good stuff coming out in the coming months.
Okay, guys, let's get into a few of these other questions. I thank you for that presentation. A couple questions came in on the same vein. That is, since you haven't, it sounds like, found any meaningful ends to Iska Iska, what's the opportunity in terms of acquiring some of the other land around what you already hold? Is that needed? Is that on the table?
I know. You want to answer that, Tom?
Well, basically, we have signed a confidential agreement. It's a binding agreement, but I don't want to get into the details of that right now. It's to do with regional bureaucracy, getting the proper paperwork. But we do have something locked up to the south, and we did pick up 8 other properties with our after survey quite a while ago. Comabol do own property to the northwest, and to the northeast. There's 2 owners that have another signature from the Astor survey, which we're talking to. But from the standpoint of what we have now and with what we're going to see south, without getting into too much detail, I would suggest we probably have more than enough. Wouldn't you, Bill?
Yeah, well, you can see how remarkably well this property does cover the caldera, which is very, very useful.
All right, guys, another question, actually a few again that have come in on this vein, is that it sounds like there's still a lot of drilling to be done. There's still a lot of blue sky potential on this project. In the longer term, what's the stage here? Are you guys drilling this out? Will it be drilled out completely and then maybe a production decision be made? Do you think you're a takeover target well before even that production decision? Or do you guys drill off a portion of this, realize that, hey, look, there's a lot still here, but you can move into production fairly easily? What is the big picture play for the company?
Well, I think this is, we're in a pretty interesting situation at this stage. We're not going to sell this thing off at this stage, or look for a partner to come in, to take buy in at the asset level. No, this is something that we believe is turning into something world class. We're not there yet, and we are going to drill until we come up with something that could I believe really enhance our valuation, our share cap valuation. And so we're just going to stick to that knitting. I'm not going to say who or what, or how we're going to be taken out. I mean, it's pretty obvious how, there's different ways of how this thing could be at the end of the day absorbed by a major balance sheet. But our job right now is to try and create as much value as possible. So, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Now, Quinton, you're technical advisor, but you're also kind of simply an investor in this with Crescat. So how do you view this as more of an investor?
Look, at Crescat, we tend to invest in early stage exploration stories, but we invest in ones that are going to deliver, world-class opportunity. And this one, hands down, is the biggest story. People ask me frequently, what do you think about this compared to that? And it's like, hold on. I mean, when it comes to this deposit, okay, I can speak a little bit more liberally. Sorry, Bill and Tom, but I'm going to plow into this one. Okay, look, you made a comment earlier, I think, or somebody did, about, how much metal value there might be in the ground here. Yeah, it is. It's remarkable. I mean, it's, tens of billions of dollars, maybe $100+ billion. Okay, that's certainly possible here, especially with the porphyry potential. When you compare that to other metal deposits like gold deposits, to put that in perspective, let's just use 100 billion for round numbers. I mean, you're talking about a 50 million ounce gold equivalent. There's not too many gold deposits out there that are that size. Okay, so this is a beast. It truly is. This one has maybe the same metal endowment as some of the world-class porphyry copper deposits. Maybe that's a better place for people to kind of, rationalize what's here. But this is, hands down, world-class opportunity. We're sticking with it for the long term. It's, it's like having from an investor perspective, it's like having a winning lottery ticket in your back pocket. It's not going to lose value. In fact, it'll probably go up as time goes on. That's the upside of exploration, is you can add a lot of value with a drill bit. So we're pleased to see Bill and Oswaldo and team continue to drill here. My view, do we need to announce a resource tomorrow? No. I think there's plenty of upside here. Look at the last couple of news releases. Holy cow! If we start bolting on drilling down in that southern area and have results that return like what we've seen in those past two news releases, stay tuned. I mean, this thing could easily get to that, say, $100 billion in situ metal value very quickly. So we're quite content. We're happy.
I guess that very much ties into Dr. Oswaldo's comments that this is the biggest tin discovery in 100 years. He made that comment, I believe, a little while ago. So it is turning out to be quite the discovery, since so much is drilling focused. A couple of quick questions here regarding, can you drill all year round? And what's the general turnaround time that you're seeing at the assay labs?
Well, year round, absolutely. I mean, we haven't stopped since we started drilling in September 2020. You have a little bit of a rainy season, which is pretty mild to deal with when you're used to doing drill programs at 40 below in Timmins. So it's a great place to work. Lab turnaround, I'm happy to say that it was a huge headache last fall because we were getting hammered with COVID restrictions. And then we just had, the Delta variant die down, and then the Omicron showed up, and the Omicron really screwed up staffing. But they're through that now, and we've been addressing it several ways. Firstly, we brought in AHK, that is a UK-based lab, very good lab. So we use both ALS and AHK. AHK built a prep facility on our site there, and that certainly helped. I'm using ALS over in Galway, Ireland, because they have more capacity than in Lima, and so I'm doing everything we can to improve turnaround, and it's definitely improving. You're seeing early on in the year, we've been putting out press releases with 5 and 6 holes, which is exactly what I like. I hate one hole press releases. And I'm pretty confident going forward the turnaround will be much improved. But having said that, you're still, if you can get something within 6 or 8 weeks, you're doing pretty good. And it's not just a problem for us; it's a global issue in labs. Absolutely. So
yeah, it's something we've just
one other comment I wanted to make too, just to follow up on what Tom and Quinton said. I've worked in this mining business all over the world. I've done everything from grassroots to production. I used to do mine audits for resources and reserves. When I worked for Desert Sun, we took the Jacobina mine and we put it back into productions. So I've worked on pre-feasibility, feasibility studies. I've resuscitated old mines and whatever else. We have a terrific engineering group in Lima, run by Graham Spears. I work with Graham in Central Sun in Nicaragua. He's got a terrific engineering team. Tom and I are looking to get some Bolivian engineering talent in there. So we basically are building up the team in Bolivia to carry this project forward. This isn't like an exploration group that's going to do the resource and then not know where to go. We got lots of experience and expertise, and I spent a lot of time underground in open pits, and as I'm doing with Blue Coast, spending a lot of time with the metallurgists. So technically, we're not going to run out of steam, and we've got great advisors like Quinton. We've got the Micon team with us, so we're fully capable of continuing to move this project forward.
All right, Tom, quickly, one last question. In terms of financing, you guys have money in the bank, but you have a lot of work going on. So how long will the current cash last you guys with all the work that's happening?
So right now we have around 9 to 10 million Canadian. Our burn rates was around $1 million US. It'll probably go up to about 1.2 US with the fourth drill on site in a few days. So we did submit a shelf prospectus that will allow us to raise up to $100 million, but not all at once. Obviously, we have 2.5 years. We can take a portion out when we decide. And the advantage to that is the OSC is vetting it as we speak. And once that's approved, then you only have a 4-day turnaround on any equity deal, bought deal. So it doesn't impinge on your news flow. So obviously we will, to keep this thing going, we're looking minimally next phase, at least 50,000 meters. So there'll be a point. We have warrants that are getting, at $5.25. Stock goes over $7. There's another 18 million bucks. It at $7, there's a forced conversion over, I think, 10, 15 business days when it trades over 7. So, there's lots of money. I'd like to mention that Cantor Fitzgerald just came out with an inaugural research report. It came out 2 days ago. So, the market, the investor base, the brokers, they're starting to take notice, of the true, just the true progress that our technical team, Bill and Oswaldo, what they've accomplished. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they really have. It's been a big winner for a lot of people in the sector. It's nice to see, and it's been fun to follow along with you guys. We're going to wrap it up here. We are just over that hour limit that we post on these webinars. A recording will be available to everybody. And if we didn't get to your question, or if you come up with more questions after watching the replay, again, please email me, fleck@kereport.com, and I will be having Tom, Bill, and Quinton back on my show. So Tom, Bill, Quinton, again, thank you very much for your time. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We hope that you garnered a lot from this webinar. We will be doing more of them as this story continues to progress. But in the meantime, that wraps us up here. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks a lot, Corey.